In this video, I'm going to show a few more examples of using the MoreQuadrantsAndSarvaAshtakavarga to analyze the person's chart as a whole. So this person, the quadrant we want to start at is the fourth house, fourth, fifth, sixth quadrant, simply because there's the most points in the fourth house. So the thing that's going to get supported the most is fourth house, of course, which is happiness, opportunities to find happiness. And fourth house is a hidden house. It is a house of sort of getting away to where you're comfortable and away from stress, as compared to the 10th house, which is the house of being in the middle of everything and taking care of everything. So this person had a lot of opportunity to do that. He had vacation property, he had a very nice home, and he even had a yacht, so a big boat. And when you see a lot of points in the fourth house, of course, all these fourth house things can be better supported for the person. And you wouldn't want to necessarily look at 34 points and say, oh, you're going to have a big house. Well, it might not be a house. It might be some other fourth house thing. That's one of the limitations of using the Sarva-Ashtakavarga, is that the house represents so many things. How do you know which part of the house it is? And that's why it's a good idea to use the individual Ashtakavargas for those details. Okay, so if you want to see if it's a vehicle, look at the fourth from Venus. If it's a home, look at the fourth from Mars, and work your details out as we showed in the first couple courses. Because houses are very broad in their meaning. Okay, but fourth house is basically opportunities to get away, to be at peace, and to be happy, and see what you need to be happy. So this person had all kinds of opportunity for that, with not only vacation property, but a vacation yacht. So really able to get away. Now the joy they received from that was only 28 points though. So considering how much opportunity they had, the joy was less. The fifth house points were less. And then out of those 28 fifth house points, they had 34 points of things they had to deal with. Sixth house are things you have to fix. A strong sixth house means that the environment is supporting you, repairing things, managing things, improving on things, fixing things. That's what the sixth house is all about. Anyone with high points in that sixth house, the environment is always going to support them in fixing things, basically, and improving on things. So this person had a lot of that stress in their life, more than the amount of joy they had with the 28 points. So the environment didn't support joy as much as, having to fix and repair things. One of the main things this person did, well, they had a few businesses at different times. The longest lasting business was owning a nursing home. Okay, and in that nursing home, of course, they were constantly called upon to take care of some problem or the other. And of course, that was the price they had to pay, and there wasn't a lot of extra joy. There wasn't enough joy to pay for all that work. So this means that while the person was trying to be happy with 34 points and saw that as an important thing, the truth was the amount the environment supported joy, 28 points, to the amount the environment supported having to do things that he maybe didn't really want to do but had to do, was just 34 points. So it was less. And then from that, he's got 32 points of energy left, we can say, to share in partnership. Now that's a good chunk of, a lot of possibilities for sharing, a lot of possibilities for partnership sharing, 32 points. But when you have a burden of 34 points on you, and you can share 32 of those points, you're still stuck with 2 points of your own burdens. And how you can kind of look at the seventh house is, the seventh house is the house of partnership, which means, all right, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, we'll support each other. We'll carry each other's burdens, we'll get tax advantages, we'll split the rent. There's a lot of advantages to having a partner in your life of any type, whether it's a business partner to help carry the load of the business or a marriage partner to help carry the load of life. So this 32 points shows how much the partnership can carry, how much of a load. But if the load on the person is higher, 6-point house here, 34 points, even though the partnership's going to support a lot with 32 points here, it's not going to support as much as the person has. Okay? So this person's going to feel burdened, okay, in many respects in their life. They're going to have a lot of pressure to take care of things. The environment will push them into having a lot to take care of. And their partner will be able to help them to a large degree with 32 points here, but not enough to make up for it. So that's why you always want less points in your 6th house and 7th house ideally, so that the amount of support you get from your partner is, how much burdens they can carry is going to be more than how many burdens you got, because then there's a lot of extra, we can say there's a lot of extra to enjoy in the partnership, okay? All right, so now we're at the house of partnership. There's a lot of partnership opportunity, which is true. The person worked in partnership actually with his spouse at times, okay? So they were co-workers at times. Now, the 8th house is the tangibles, the actual value the partner brings in. What the partner can share is the 7th house, and what the person can share with their partner is the 7th house. But what their partner brings to the table is the 8th house. So that's 25 points. So while the partner can share a lot with the person and lighten their load with 32 points in the 7th, the partner doesn't bring a lot of extra to the table, okay? So they don't bring necessarily more, excessive amount of more money, just an average amount to the table, okay? So the final value of their life after sharing with their partnership isn't as much as, isn't an ideal amount. It's a little less than desirable. And again, always compare these numbers for how much they share and how much the partner actually ends up bringing to the table. With 25 points is less. And again, we want the 2nd house from the angle to always have more. But then the good thing is, how much do they have to give up? How many things do they have to let go of that they'd want to get from their partner that they don't get is 24 compared to the fact that they get 25 from their partner. So they're actually going to end up being quite happy with what they get from their partner. Okay? So while the 2nd house from the 7th is not higher than the 7th like we'd like it to be, it's, in lots of ways more important that the 9th is lower. So it makes for a decent little quadrant, okay? Now, what they don't get from their partner, 24 points, is going to motivate them to, take on bigger tasks for themselves, which is the 10th house. And we want the 10th house to be higher than that, okay? Because this is what they don't get from their partnership, what they have to let go of, 24 points. And then they can do 27 points of activity. So they can do more than they're not getting from their partnership. So that helps them stick ahead. And from what they do, they're going to get really good returns because the 11th house has more points than does the 10th house. They're going to get good returns for their actions. So this quadrant's looking pretty good too. And then of those returns, how much will they have to spend to get to the next step of their life? 29 points, which is less than 30. So they're still a little bit ahead, which helps them save and have more abundance in life. Whenever the 11th is greater than the 12th, when the gains are more than the expense, it helps people get ahead. And when they are ahead, that gives the person an opportunity to take the time to, find out what they're really here for, do more of what they really are. But there's not a lot of support to actually do that with just 25 points in the 1st house. So that's the weakest house, actually. And it's not a very strong trine. When you have one house low, 24 points in the 9th. So that trine's strong. Low. So, but the most important story of the person is always going to be to look at the quadrant that starts with the highest point. So you could just jump in there and say, all right, your focus is on happiness. The world really supports you in trying to be happy, and you do the things that will set you up to be happy. But then you're not able to get as much joy out of the things you think you'll be happy with. And then you have a lot of burdens placed on you with this higher 6th house. So in the end, even though you make a lot of efforts to be happy, you end up just having a lot of burdens and not as much joy as you'd hoped for. And then you can say, but you have a partner that can share the load to a large degree, but not so much as, your burdens of the sixth house. So that right there would be a primary theme. The other houses aren't going to be as significant themes. This is the primary theme in the person. Okay, so always start with that quadrant that starts with the highest points. Here's another person. We want to start this person at the fourth house too, because their highest house is 30 points, or the highest angle is 30 points. So their world is going to support them in being happy and trying to be happy, and but the joy they're going to receive is less. So again, it's a deficit. They understand the need to be happy. They think about the things that can make them happy, but when they're actually doing the things, they're getting less joy out of them than they imagined, than they'd hoped for. And then this person also ends up having quite a bunch of burdens they have to take care of. So it's hard to be happy when the joy you get isn't enough to get you through your burdens. And then the burdens they have are quite high, the things they have to do and repair and fix and work on. And there's not as much partnership, to actually share those burdens, to lighten that load. So this lets us know that while the person's focused on being happy, it's hard for them to be happy, and also it's hard for their partner to help them be happy. Whenever a person has more points in the sixth than the seventh, their partner is going to have a hard time making them happy because they got a lot of burdens. They got a lot of things they have to do that the partner can't help them with. There's too many things that they need to do that the partner can't help them with, that it makes it harder for the partner to feel like they really are helping that person to feel good or happy. Okay, so that's what we can simply look at this person. That would be the primary theme in this person's life. Primary theme in respect to Ashtakavarga. And we'll get back to this person's chart in the next video too. Actually, we won't. The next thing I wanted to tell you about this is, I want to tell you right now. Okay, the other thing that's important to look at is find the strongest house in the entire spread. Here it's 40 points for the 8th house. So that's in the 7th, 8th, 9th, leading to the 10th house quadrant. So since that's the house with the most points, I definitely want to focus on that quadrant too. So opportunities for partnership, 26 points. Not enough to make up for her burdens. But the partners can carry some loads. But then the partners bring a lot to the table. Look at that, 40 points. The partners bring a tremendous amount to the table. That means more money, more opportunities. Partners bring a lot of value to this person, to make the relationship much more worthwhile. And I might have mentioned when the 8th house is good, it makes people want to stay in their relationship more because the partner brings a lot to the table. If the 8th house points are low, then of course there's less attachment to the relationship because the partner brings less to the table. So here we've got the partner bringing a tremendous amount to the table. And of what they don't get fulfilled is only 24 points compared to 40 points what the partner is bringing in. So they're way ahead of their, they're way ahead in what they're getting from their partnership. And then what they're not getting, they're still going to take it upon themselves to do more great things than that with 29 points. So this person will do, take on plenty that they don't even have to take on just because they're capable of it, which is a healthy attitude. The 10th house is about doing what you can do. It's not doing something because you're really trying to compensate for something. So when the 9th points are lower than the 10th, it helps a person do things simply because they have the ability to do them, not because they're trying to compensate for, for not having certain things. So looking at this with 40 points here, which has a lot to do with the longevity of a relationship. In fact, Beaver Ramon said the 8th house is the longevity of the relationship. You might want to start saying, well, this person's going to have long-term relationships. If you look at the 7th house, the opportunities for partnership are less, But once they get going, they're very steady with 30 points in the 11th. And the third house has 30 points too. So the relationship trine is pretty well suited. And then the 8th house is pretty strong too. So those things are going to help her have better relationships. Now when we look at her planets, just as a comparison, we see some big differences here, or some notable differences, in that her 7th lord is in the 8th, which can always indicate changes in relationships. Then Venus, the Karaka of relationships, is in the 12th with Rahu. It's also in Cancer, where Venus is starved. And so you can see that the relationship factors are not great. And, you know, both the 7th lord and the 7th lord is in a Dhisthana, and the Karaka Venus is in a Dhisthana. That's usually not a very promising thing to see in a chart. And you might say, well, you're not going to get a whole lot from your partners in that sense. But the Ashtakavarga does help build that out. So when the person's in a partnership, their partner brings a lot to the table, as we'd expect with these 40 points here. However, they're never able to keep a relationship, even though in lots of ways they're good relationships, because there's too much partnership change with the Saturn in the 7th lord in the 8th, and partnership loss with Venus in the 12th, to keep a relationship going, even though the relationships offer a lot, as you see with these 40 points of Ashtakavarga. Generally, if you see Saturn in the 8th, you want to predict the person's not going to get a whole lot from their partner. That's the general rule. But here, with the Ashtakavarga at 40 points, no, there was a lot of support to that 8th house, actually. Okay, so this is a case where you'll see some there's some notable differences between what the planets are showing, the Ashtakavarga are showing. And they both come together to make the full context of their life. So again, with the Ashtakavarga, we can nail certain things accurately, but it's not necessarily the entire story. Always keep that in mind. So here's a person whose dominant house is the 10th house with 38 points. And also the other house that has a lot of points is the 11th with 38 points. So both, not only the most dominant angle, the strongest angle, but the most dominant houses are in the 10th, 11th, 12th, leading to the first house trine. So in this last quadrant, okay, or not trine, but quadrant. So 38 points, that's a lot of activity. It's a lot of doing, a lot of, you know, taking things upon our own shoulders. And as you'll generally see with the high 10th house, it helps a person want to be in charge. So they'll more often be self-employed or be in charge of whatever field they're in. They'll somehow be in charge of somebody or something that's bigger. So this person takes a lot of responsibilities upon their shoulder with 38 points there. And they get ahead, they get the gains, the returns they get from that are commensurate with what they do. It's 50-50. They're getting paid exactly how much they're worth. So that's positive. That's perfect. Then out of what they're worth, they don't have a lot of expenses, just 23 compared to 38 points. So they have a lot less expenses. So they're very much staying ahead of the game in their life. But with only 23 points in the first house, the environment's not supporting them being a great person. So they're taking a lot upon their shoulders. With the 10th house, they're getting a lot of equal returns on that, but they're not becoming a greater person, you know, because the low points in the first house. You want the karmas, the actions you do, to lead you to being a greater person by having a lot of points in the first house. It's not really doing that. It's not making her say, okay, now that I've done that, what can I do that's better or bigger or more important or better for me to do? That's not happening with this person because there's a lot less points here in the first house. And these points equal the points in the 12th. You want more points in the first than the 12th. And ideally, more points in the first than the 10th, 11th, or 12th. That's a really nice combination. So here's a person whose dominant house is the 8th house with 35 points. But the dominant angle is the 10th house with 32 points. So I would start looking at the 10th, 11th, 12th quadrant as first. So with 32 points in the 10th, the activities the person is going to be more supported in doing is work. You know, their career goals. And that was very true of this person. But the results of that, the esteem they get, the respect they get, the honors they get, the income they get, is much less than their worth. They're not getting supported in that. So they don't have that much affluence, whether through money or through their social connections, considering the work they do. So they get much less returns than the quality of their work for this person. And as much as they get, they have to spend. They have to lose. But then that expense is a worthwhile expense because it supports them being who they are to 29 points, to more than the expenses. Okay? But this is very much a person who has, done good work, been conscientious about work, made their work a priority, but just never had the gained the respect, the affluence, or the income that they should have, would have, that their work merited. So it's less. But fortunately, their expenses weren't too great. They're just equal. So, and it's always nice to have the first house higher than the 12th, because then the expenses at least are in good account and help you progress further in life through the first house. Okay. The other quadrant that's going to be important analyzing this person that's better supported is the 7th, 8th, 9th leading to the 10th quadrant, because they got the highest amount of points in the 8th house here. So with 28 points in the 7th house, their opportunities for partnership, the opportunities for their partners to share burdens with them is 28 points, which is dead average. But their partner brings a lot of worth into their life with 35 points, a lot of value into their life with 35 points. So that's going to make the partnership quite desirable. Okay, it's going to provide a lot. And it's a very simple, the the 7th and 8th houses, lots of times it's hard to really create a definitive line between the two. They're very similar. 7th house is your partnership activities. The 8th house is the value your partner brings into your life. And those are very similar things. You kind of can look at that as the first house, which is you, and the second house is your name. So it's kind of hard to separate yourself from your name, but they are somewhat different things, okay? So the same is there for the first or the 7th and 8th house. So you can kind of look at it that way if it gets confusing. So the partner is going to bring a lot to them. And what they're not going to, what the partner's not going to bring to the table, there's only 30 points left that they're not getting. So they're way ahead in their partnership. And then they got 32 points in the 10th. So they have the energy to do, to get supported in doing great things. So this is a nice quadrant, a nice 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th house. With the 10th house being greater than the 9th and the 8th house being greater than the 7th. So what they get from their partnership work, 28 points, they get a lot out of it. So if they put in $28 into their partnership, they get $35 back. So they're benefiting from their partnership. You can look at the 7th house, how much energy the person puts into their partnership, and the 8th house is how much they get back for putting that energy into their partnership. And here it's more. Okay? So that's always a nice thing. It's always nice to see these, fixed signs, the 5th, 11th, or fixed houses, the security houses of what you get, the 5th, 11th, 2nd, and 5th houses, and 8th, to be well supported in Ashtakavarga. Okay, so with some practice, you'll start being able to work through these quadrants. It just takes a little practice to get the, brain working around these numbers a little bit, but it's a pretty simple technique. So between the trines and the quadrants, we can get some good foundational information about a person. That's pretty easy to analyze, and you can use pretty confidently because you're using many houses together, which minimizes errors that can come from other extremes in the chart. So I always like to focus on Sarva with those two techniques. In the next video, I'm showing you one other Sarva technique, so be back with that.